Hi, and welcome to Classical Stuff You Should Know, a podcast about classical education, the classical world, old books, philosophy, ideas. We could probably do music if we wanted to.
Sure. Starting island civilizations.
Yes. My name is Graham Donaldson, and I'm joined by two of my fellow survivors.
Wow.
On the island.
Sounds like we're talking about Survivor.
Survivor.
Yeah.
That was a great show.
Was it? I think it's still going.
It's still going.
Are you serious?
I think
I
there's
watched
still an episode.
season one and then never met anything else.
It's very much less like learn how to survive in the jungle and very much more like play these crazy games and talk bad about each other.
Great.
Yeah.
And I'm joined with my fellow lords, AJ Hannenberg
That's me.
and Thomas Magby.
Now, I can't take I can't take that title. You actually have that title.
I
AJ.
actually am a lord, yeah.
So
AJ has a heraldry.
out of, is it Sealand?
Sealand.
Yeah, good.
I'm looking at it right now. It's on the board.
It's
About
behind
as
me.
legitimate as it can be.
It's a printed certificate, so congratulations.
Yep.
Good.
And we are going to be talking about a book about a bunch of boys just
Having a great...
making away in this crazy world. Takes everything you got. Making your way in the world today. All right, whatever.
No, keep going. This is great. This is really good.
And you're doing Lord of the Flies, right? You're talking
Okay.
about Plane Crash.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah. I'm talking about Lord of the Flies today. Have you guys read the book?
Yes.
I read it like probably in 11th grade
Okay.
when I was in Canada.
Thomas, when did you read it, Thomas?
10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you remember about it?
I've already gotten this wrong before on this podcast because I remember, you got this group of boys, there's a plane crash, is that what you just said? They get stranded on this island, and it's the story of like, what do they do in the face of that?
They set up a civilization, there's food, and then they blame the fat kid for eating all the food and they kill him.
And there's something that like,
Wrong, but
there's something that like establishes authority. I thought
Conch shell.
I thought it was a
Conch
shell, and someone drops it at some point, and then that's when the murder happens, right? I think it's
They
in that
murder
same
Piggy.
That's all I remember.
They're a bunch of British kids going off, like British school children going off on like a debate competition or something like that.
yeah, I don't think it ever actually says what they were doing.
But they start off. They're supposed to be like civilized, well behaved.
And they create
whatever,
like
and-
they're going to create like sort of Western liberalism on this island of voting in Parliament and
Yeah,
and it
Turns
turns
murder.
into like
Murder times.
like killing each other and like shaking sticks and
Yeah.
Is this the part where you tell us we're all wrong about everything?
No,
that we
I mean,
just said?
getting mad at the pudgy kid for eating all the food didn't happen, but a lot of the other stuff did
I
happen.
thought they blamed him.
They get mad at him.
They get mad at him, but not for that.
Oh.
Not for like eating all the food. That's not really
He
his
didn't
issue.
do it. That's the whole point. Someone ate the food. Whatever.
Nobody ate the food. That's as far as I know. That's not really part of the deal.
You are the one who like just read this book, so you would know better than we do.
I,
for sure.
I mean, I did read it finish it this morning.
Literally,
so.
yeah, good.
Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of the book. I don't want to spend too much time here. A lot of our episodes where I do a book are, largely episodic, me retelling the story. This one's a common enough story that people have heard that I don't feel too compelled to retell it. But I think my first time through, I missed a lot of the symbolism. This time, I think I did a better job of sort of understanding what the author was trying to do. And I want to spend some time there, especially because it kind of dovetails really nicely with 2 episodes ago, one of Donaldson's episodes. So I'm going to highlight kind of the major events and give a big sweeping, like here's kind of what happens. And then we can talk about a couple of things that I noticed. And maybe if you are, say, a student or a person who wants to dive a little bit deeper into this book or are thinking about reading it, then this will help you dive in a little bit deeper. As always, there will probably be spoilers. So if you are...
We've literally spoiled one of the main plot points of the book, right?
I probably should have said that first, eh?
I feel like you have to know that if you click on an episode. I have no idea what you'll title this, but...
It would probably just Lord of the Flies.
Okay, but I think people should know by that.
Yep. Okay. Anyway, so spoilers ahead. You might just want, turn it off if you don't want spoilers. Like
Keep listening.
Go
No,
read the
wait.
book and then
Okay.
come back later after you've read it. Yeah. All right. So you got some main characters. You got Ralph, who is he would be the protagonist. He's a good kid. Just a standard British boy. He's not always kind like he should be. He tries to take authority. He is the authority figure, and his character progresses and changes throughout the novel. But right at the beginning, when it's a crash, he's just your standard British kid. He's kind of tall, good-looking, athletic, and maybe doesn't always conduct himself perfectly, but he seems to be well-meaning. Then we have Jack Merridew, who is the prefect of a choir and commands them with... he commands them with an iron fist and ends up being kind of the antagonist of the book. You have Piggy, who was the pudgy kid that Donaldson mentioned. He's there at the very beginning with Ralph. And he, wears spectacles, and we'll talk about exactly what he represents as we go along. And then you've got Simon, who is he's kind of a shy loner. I think he's the guy that passes out right at the beginning of the book as the choir kind of walks up with Jack. He passes out and they're like, he's always passing out. So they haul him up there. And then you have a couple of twins that pop up. But there's some other side characters. The twins pop up often enough that I want to mention them. Their names are Sam and Eric, and they are together so much that everyone just comes to calling them Sam and Eric.
It's funny.
And they actually put the names together, Samneric. So those are kind of the main characters. You've got Ralph, main guy, Jack, who ends up being the antagonist, Piggy, Simon, the shy loner, and Sam and Eric. So, sequence of events. At the very beginning of the book, Piggy and Jack emerge from the forest after a plane crash. Like, it just talks about them sort of walking out of this big scar torn through the jungle, and it was made by the fuselage of the plane as it, landed and sort of wrecked itself, and then the sea dragged it away from shore. And so they don't have any of the things left by the plane. They are just in their clothes, and then there's nothing else. There's no luggage. There's nothing to salvage. They are just left on the island. And Piggy confides in Ralph. Did I say Piggy and Jack emerge?
You did.
Okay, so. I wrote my notes wrong. It's Ralph. So Piggy and Ralph emerge, and Piggy asks Ralph his name, and Ralph says it, and then he doesn't ask in return what Piggy's name is. And eventually, Piggy gets around to just sort of saying it. He's like, well, as long as you don't call me what they called me at school. And Ralph goes, oh, what's that? And he says, Piggy. And so,
that's
Ralph makes fun of him, and then it will later come out, and he sort of betrays that trust and tells all the rest of the kids, so they all call him Piggy, which is rough. So they wander out of the jungle. They find this beautiful spot that has sort of an elevated stone platform with a pool right on the end of it. It's really idyllic, actually. And they find in the waves this beautiful, massive conch shell. Conch? Conch? I've never known. Is it conch?
Is it conch?
I think it's conch.
Oh.
I always thought it was conch.
Can one of you Google this for me? I've never known, and I always wanted to figure this out.
What's Google know?
Conch.
It's conch?
That's what this says.
A conch shell?
You hear that? Conch.
Okay. I feel dumb saying conch. Conch sounds more civilized.
Say it however you want to.
Okay. Anyway, he finds the conch
This is
shell.
America, baby.
And they're wondering if there are any other boys around on the island, right? If anyone else has survived. So Piggy notes that, all right, that shell is awesome. It's huge. It's probably worth a ton of money. But you got to blow on one end, and you kind of got to spit while you do it. And so Ralph tries, and he kind of goes, and then they laugh for a while, and then he actually succeeds in blowing it, and all the other kids start to gather to this place, including Jack and his crew of choir boys. And they show up in militarized, 2 lines, and he already has them sort of marching. They're sort of like a little army. And they decide that they are going to form a little society, that they got to do a few things that are really important. They got to find out where they are. They got to find out, Piggy's supposed to take names of everybody so they can keep track of them. And then they need to start some sort of signal fire. That's the next thing that they got to do is signal fire at some point. So they talk with Jack. In this moment, they elect Ralph as chief, right? Jack kind of tries to get it. He says, I should be chief. And they're like, well, but Ralph has the conch. And so everybody votes Ralph to be chief. Jack is a little sore about this, but Ralph, as a good leader, says, hey, but you can lead this band of folks, the people you're already leading, and they can be hunters. And Jack is like, dope. So they all go and decide to, they take a small cadre of boys and go and explore the island and find out that indeed they are on an island. And they're pretty excited about this, right? It's kind of cool.
It sounds awesome.
There's no parents.
Yeah.
They're on an island. It turns out that fruit is abundant. It's everywhere. They can have a diet of fruit, and it makes them a little loose in the shorts. But it's everywhere. They're fine. They can have an odd crab. Meat is hard to get, but for the most part, it's kind of cool. Yeah. No parents. And so in this moment, they're all feeling great. And Jack and Ralph have sort of this weird connection, even though they're a little bit antagonistic. But they find they're on an island, and then Jack has and up there they have their first encounter with a pig, and they kind of trap it, and Jack grabs it and whips out his knife, but hesitates, and then the pig gets away, and he says, I can't believe I hesitated. Next time, and he does the very boyish thing of stabbing his knife into a tree and being like, next time, thunk. And I think the author does, the author William Golding does a great job in capturing boyhood and the activities of boys and how they actually speak and behave. He does a really good job of this. The things that are really important that boys wouldn't think about, they don't think about, and they just kind of push things away. And there's all the drama of being a young child and imagining all these big, massive things like being a hunter and then whipping your knife into an oak and being like, next time I'll kill it. That's kind of the thing that's happening.
Yeah.
So they go back down and decide that they need a signal fire to signal that they can get rescued. They grab a whole bunch of wood and pile it all together and decide this is going to be a great thing, and then realize none of them knows how to make fire.
Sure.
Except Piggy has glasses. So they borrow his glasses, focus a point, and then start this big, massive signal fire. But they kind of got too excited. It's way too big. There's not enough smoke, and it starts to spread, and it spreads across a part of the island. And the boys just don't worry about it. But this is the first sort of signal that things are not kind of going as planned, right? They wanted to do a signal fire. It was going to be civilized. It wasn't really. And one kid, a kid with a birthmark on his face, actually goes missing. Oh. They never see him again. Wow. They know that things kind of got out of hand, and that kid was probably killed. Piggy didn't get a list of the youngins, as they call them, like the little kids, ages 6. No one really takes care of them. They're like 6, and they just eat fruit and sort of play with sandcastles and wander around. But he goes away, and no one really they just kind of push it to the edge of their minds, even though they know that he is lost. They
feel bad about it, but they don't talk about it, right?
Yeah, and then because they don't talk about it, they feel less bad about it, right? They just kind of let it go. They have, another meeting, and they kind of all realize that the island isn't necessarily a great place, like a good place. But at some point, Jack takes his hunters. Ralph sees that the signal, they decide to remake the signal fire on top of the mountain, but Ralph sees it has gone out. There's no smoke coming off of it, and he sees a ship as they're just sort of down building shelters. Yeah. He freaks out and tries to run all the way up, realizes that he doesn't really, I'm not even sure he brought the glasses, so he can't really fix it. And when he's up there, Jack shows up and yells at him like, "You guys, it was your job. It was the hunter's job to keep this going." But Jack had actually just killed a pig, and he said, "Yes, but I have meat, and I needed everyone to do this." They did sort of a ring and trap the pig. And Ralph was like, "Yes, but we could have been rescued. Like, this is the most important thing on the island, and you let it go out, and that's not okay." And the rift in the two boys deepened, right? So Ralph is really angry. Jack feels embarrassed, even though he had just done this triumphant thing and killed a pig from everybody. And it's not great. Right after this, they have a meeting, and everyone is just generally feeling lots of fear and feeling really bad they missed a boat, and stuff isn't great. And a young child says that he has been seeing this beast, and it comes up from the water, and everyone thinks he's probably just dreaming. It's not a big deal, but the rumor of the beast goes around. And they don't really know. And what's worse is that these kids kind of half believe in ghosts. Some of them, Piggy says he doesn't. He's like, "I don't believe in it." But everybody else says, "What if there are ghosts?" And Ralph can't rein them all in and say once and for all that there is nothing. And they all think it's possible that big squids come out of the water and do horrible things. And so the split between Jack and Ralph deepens. At this moment, there is a beast that comes from the air. So what happens is there is a war going on, and a plane is shot down, and the pilot ejects but is killed, and he is dragged by his parachute onto the island, and the parachute kind of gets tangled in a weird way, and the wind can blow and make the body sit up and lay back down just as the wind sort of blows the parachute.
Sure.
And so it's up on top of the air, and Sam and Eric, who are in charge of the signal fire, see this body. And they think it's the beast. So they run back down, and everyone says, "Okay, well, we've seen it. We have proof that it exists. We have to go find it." So Jack says, "I've been all over this island hunting. There's no beast, and there's maybe one place they could find it." So they go and they find this big sort of castle fort-shaped pink rock. They explore it. There's clearly no beast. Jack says it might be a great place to build a fort and hunker down, but it's a little more exposed to the sea. There's no shelters. It's not the place that they're used to. So they decide to go to the top of the mountain. On the way, they sort of decide not to do it. They find a boar. It gets away. And this is the moment where they sort of he's like, "Oh, we got it away, but next time we'll kill it." And in the ring, the boys all start to chant, "Kill the beast, slit its throat, spill its blood." And then they start poking at one kid, and it almost gets a little out of hand. They're sort of play acting the kill of the hog. But they stop, and then they continue on. Jack and Ralph go up, and they too see the beast, and they think, "Oh no, it's the real deal." The body sits up and sort of gapes in them with these horrible black eyes, and they think it's some sort of ape, and they run off. And Ralph calls the assembly. Ralph It doesn't go very well. Jack says that he's going to go hunt. And maybe he's like, screw the beast. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go hunt. And if I find the beast, I'll kill it. He eventually does actually find and kill a pig. And then they decide to leave offerings for the beast because that'll keep it away from them. So they take the pig's head and set it up on a stake. And I'm going to read a section right after that where Simon, who
The fainty boy,
he's actually gone up and explored a little bit, and he finds the body and realizes that it's not a beast, right? He has seen like it's just an airman who's tangled up, and he sort of like fiddles with the wires, and then the wind takes the body out to sea. So he knows what's going on. But at this point, Jack has basically said, he made a bid for chief right after they saw the beast and said, like, I can take care of this. Who wants me as chief? And no one raised their hands. So he got mad. He ran off. He said, screw you guys. I'm going to go hunting. And, if I find the beast, I'll kill it. And if you want to be part of my tribe, you can. And a bunch of people leave and sort of like disappear over time and go over to Jack's tribe. So now Jack has a bunch of followers. They hunt, they find a pig, and he sets up this little head. And I'm going to read the section where Simon, who is returning from having, freed the airman, encounters the beast. Let's see. Okay, Simon stayed where he was, a small brown image concealed by the leaves. Even if he shut his eyes, the sow's head still remained like an afterimage. The half-shut eyes were dim with the infinite cynicism of adult life. They assured Simon that everything was a bad business. I know that, said Simon. Simon discovered that he had spoken aloud. He opened his eyes quickly, and there was the head, grinning amusedly in the strange daylight, ignoring the flies, the spilled guts, even ignoring the indignity of being spiked on a stick. He looked away, licking his dry lips. A gift for the beast. Might not the beast come for it? The head, he thought, appeared to agree with him. Run away, said the head silently. Go back to the others. It was a joke, really. Why should you bother? You were just wrong, that's all. A little headache, something you ate, perhaps. Go back, child, said the head silently. Simon looked up, feeling the weight of his wet hair, and gazed at the sky. Up there for once were clouds, great bulging towers that sprouted away over the island, gray and cream and copper-colored. The clouds were sitting on the land. They squeezed, produced moment by moment this close, tormenting heat. Even the butterflies deserted the open space where the obscene thing grinned and dripped. Simon lowered his head, carefully keeping his eyes shut, then sheltered them with his hand. There were no shadows under the trees, but everywhere a pearly stillness, so that what was real seemed elusive, without definition. So it talks about the flies, et cetera, and then it sort of flashes back to what's going on at shore. And I want to get back to the next chunk of Simon. Okay. You are a silly little boy, said the Lord of the Flies, just an ignorant, silly little boy. And as the Lord of the Flies, this pig head on a stick, talks to Simon, Piggy and Ralph have decided that maybe they would like to go and enjoy some of the meat with all of the other boys that Jack has sort of gathered. Like, if you guys want, you can come to a feast, but it's my tribe. And, he's got a painted face, which kind of allows him to sort of do what he wants to. It hides the real Jack. And so now he's like painted Jack and he can do whatever he likes. So back to Simon. Just an ignorant, silly little boy. Simon moved his swollen tongue but said nothing. Don't you agree? Said the Lord of the Flies. Aren't you just a silly little boy? Simon answered him in the same silent voice. Well then, said the Lord of the Flies, you'd better run off and play with the others. They think you're batty. You don't want Ralph to think you're batty, do you? You like Ralph a lot, don't you? And Piggy and Jack? Simon's head was tilted slightly up. His eyes could not break away, and the Lord of the Flies hung in space before him. What are you doing out here all alone? Aren't you afraid of me? Simon shook. There isn't anyone to help you. Only me. And I'm the beast. Simon's mouth labored, brought forth audible words. Pig's head on a stick. Fancy thinking the beast was something you could hunt and kill, said the head. For a moment or two, the forest and all the other dimly appreciated places echoed with the parody of laughter. You knew, didn't you? I'm part of you. Close, close, close. I'm the reason why it's no-go. Why things are what they are? The laughter shivered again. Come now, said the Lord of the Flies. Get back to the others and we'll forget the whole thing. Simon's head wobbled. His eyes were half closed as though he were imitating the obscene thing on a stick. He knew that one of his times was coming on. The Lord of the Flies was expanding like a balloon. This is ridiculous. You know perfectly well you'll only meet me down there, so don't try to escape. Simon's body was arched and stiff. The Lord of the Flies spoke in the voice of a schoolmaster. This has gone quite far enough, my poor misguided child. Do you think you know better than I do? There was a pause. I'm warning you. I'm going to get angry, do you see? You're not wanted, understand? We are going to have fun on this island, understand? We are going to have fun on this island, so don't try it on, poor misguided boy, or else. Simon found he was looking into a vast mouth. There was blackness within, a blackness that spread. Or else, said the Lord of the Flies. We shall do you, see? Jack and Roger and Maurice and Robert and Bill and Piggy and Ralph. Do you? See? Simon was inside the mouth. He fell down and lost consciousness. So he passes out again. So that's the moment with the pig. So the boys are down feasting on the pig carcass, and Simon is now running with the news of the beast down to the other boys. They have finished, kind of. And the boys sort of do their dance to feel better about things. After the feast, they start to dance around saying, kill the beast, slit its throat, spill its blood. And Simon comes wobbling out of the forest in the black night. The circle opens, he stumbles to the middle and starts yelling something about a dead airman. And in their crazed, dance, all of the boys decide to kill the beast. And they start beating him and punching him and poking him with things, and he dies. And then the sea takes the body away in the evening. Ralph and Piggy took part in this. They like to say that they were on the outside of the circle or they left early. And again, it's one of those things that they did that nobody likes to think about.
Yeah.
And Jack has now said, I have my tribe. You are not part of the tribe. So it's Piggy, Ralph, and Sam and Eric are sort of the only big ones left of the original tribe of what they had decided to do. Jack realizes they need fire to roast Pig if they get it. And so they lead a night raid and steal Piggy's specs. So now poor Piggy can't see. They can't keep the fire going. And that's not a great thing. And so the original 4 go to get those specs back. And as they go, they come up to where the other tribe has taken refuge in that big pink rock with that fort that they had found earlier. And they have made a lever action to sort of like dump boulders down on anyone who comes nearby. Like, it's very combative. And as they go, Roger, one of the students or one of the kids in the tribe, in the middle of the fight, as sort of Jack and Ralph fight with sticks and they're trying to, sort this out the way boys do, he tilts the lever and the giant boulder comes crashing down, brushes against Piggy, who can't see, breaks the conch shell, and knocks Piggy off of a cliff. And he falls 40 feet to his death. And then they take Sam and Eric hostage, and there are threats, and Ralph runs off. And the next day, he comes back to try to, make peace. He sees that Sam and Eric are the ones watching the gate. He talks to them and like, you gotta get out of here, man. Like, tomorrow, we're gonna hunt you. Like, that's what we're doing. He has made that clear. We are going to hunt you, and we are, we're going to cover the entire island in a big line of kids. There's no way you're getting away from this. So he tells them where he'll be hiding and asks them to steer them away. They don't do it. They eventually are forced to tell, and the tribe lights a fire near where he's hiding to kind of try to get him out, and that fire spreads, and eventually the whole island is on fire. And they have thrown a spear at him. They threw it at him in the first encounter and like grazed his ribs. So he takes off, and as he reaches the far end of the island where the fire has now taken over most of it, it's burning all the fruit trees, it's burning everything, the pigs are running, he encounters a naval seaman who has seen the fire from this giant burning island and has arrived, and all of the boys run up, and they all sort of dissolve into tears, and apparently they are saved. So that's the story of the book. Thoughts so far?
I hate it, man.
I love that they all like burst into tears when they see the naval officer at the end, like as boys would.
Yeah.
I forgot this. Yeah. So they kill Simon as in the little ritualized thing, and Piggy falls off the mountain. That's what happens. All right.
Yeah. So they kill Simon. So we end up with, I think, 3 dead. The small boy with the scarred face or the birthmark. And then we have Piggy, who also dies. And we have Simon, who is killed in a ring of boys. It's not great. And the death of Piggy is pretty stark. Like, he falls, his brain's hit, and then the sea takes that body too. In fact, the sea seems to take every single body except the boy with the birthmark, and we never see him again. So there's something to be said for the like timelessness of the sea and the way that it doesn't leave any evidence of these crimes. But there's a lot to notice in the book. There's a couple things I'm still kind of exploring, and I'd love your guys' take on, and there's a couple things I noticed on this read-through that might interest the reader. So there are 2 big symbols in this book. One is the conch shell, which becomes, like, you guys probably guess at what it represents.
like order and civilization and some kind of rule of law, or at least rule of custom.
Yeah.
If you hold the shell, you can talk, right?
Yeah, that's the rule. So if you're holding the shell, you get to talk, and Ralph begins every meeting holding the shell because he's the chief. And so the shell comes to mean civility. And there are times when he brings it, like when he goes up to try to get the specs back at the very end of the book, they bring the conch shell and he's like, I have this. And they're like, who gives a crap? Like, we don't care about your rules anymore. That's over. And then when Piggy is killed, it's the last breaking of the conch shell. It falls and shatters too. And so it's the final loss of civilization for the boys. Yeah. Like that is the moment that it goes, especially because Piggy seems to be the voice of clear-headed reason, right? Ralph is always hoping that he could think like Piggy does because Piggy sees what should be done, makes rational things. Like they're all disappointed they can't keep the fire going on the mountain. He's like, why don't we just make it down here? Seems a lot easier. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Like that kind of thing. So he dies, and there goes like the thinking, and there also goes civility. So we have the conch shell, and then eventually we have the Lord of the Flies, which is the pig head on a stick. I haven't fully sorted what that means. Do you guys have any ideas?
Well, doesn't Simon say some kind of line of like, maybe there is a beast and the beast is us or something like that? Doesn't someone say that?
Yeah, they do. There is a line that says, hey, maybe we are the beast and it's sort of inside us. And I think the Lord of the Flies represents like human depravity or barbarian tendencies.
Like they're the two sides of the same coin, right? Like if man is, angel and beast, like if we have our ability to be civil and to hold society together with rules and laws and customs, and then that's sort of the conch shell, and then the dead pig head on a stick is our superstition, the sort of the dark animalistic side, the thing that drives Jack, where Jack says, next time I'm going to kill him, like his pride and his embarrassment and all of those sort of like the sort of appetites of man's guts, like that sort of more animalistic side is represented in that pig's head. And
yeah, near the end of the book, it's been bleached white because it's just been out there by itself. And so it sort of mirrors the conch shell. And Ralph encounters it as he goes up the last couple of times to contend with the tribe. And he actually breaks it because it freaks him out. He's like, this is weird. And he takes the stick that it was sat on, and it's a two-ended spear, two-ended spear, like sharpened on one end to go on the ground, sharpened on the other for the pig head. And so it seems like almost like he has now adopted that barbarian quality. And then the threat that they level at him, the Sam and Eric tell him, they say, hey, we're going to hunt you. And he's like, what is he going to do when he finds me? He says, well, we've got a spear that's sharpened on both ends. Like your head is going on a spit, ostensibly. So it seems like once the skull has shattered, like there's no more separate thing that is the Lord of the Flies. It's in the boys.
You need to have the scapegoat, or you need to have the thing that is gonna take on either the role of the thing that we're against. Like you need to have the antagonist that you fight.
So there was the beast, but now it's not the beast. It's
and
Ralph.
So you need to have some kind of unifying. So if you're not going to have a unifying principle of on the positive side, so like we're going to have this conch shell and we're going to have rule of law, then you need to have a unifying principle on the negative side, which is going to be if we all don't band together, nature is going to, the forces of nature are going to get us, the beast, the magic, the evil. So we need, and if that means that we need to kill somebody in order to keep us cohered together, well, then we're willing to do that.
And it was that fear that sort of initially coalesced the tribe around Jack, right? The fear of the beast. And then at the end, it's not the fear of the beast anymore. They're all just against Ralph.
Yeah.
So that's really rough. So we have our two symbols, right? The pig and the conch shell. And
the jungle makes you go crazy, man.
Okay, so on that, the jungle making you go crazy, the weird thing is to watch the degradation of Ralph. So Ralph begins being clear-headed, but over time, he starts to lose the thread of what he's saying. He'll forget. Like, he knows that the fire is the most important thing, and he'll call an assembly, and he'll say, we've got to... What was I going to say? And then Piggy will be like, the fire? And he's like, yeah, that's the most important thing. We got to keep the fire going, or else... What's the other thing? And be like, the beast? And he's like, yeah, the beast. So he just starts to forget stuff, which is awfully strange for a kid like that. And I was wondering about why that degradation, and eventually he just sort of, I guess, falls into that same antagonism and, abandons civility just the same. it's hard to watch that happen to somebody like Ralph. He really does mean well and he's trying to be a good leader, but he keeps on sort of forgetting what's going on. And everyone seems to be abandoning the fire altogether, which is their only hope of survival. He's like, this is clearly the most important thing. And then even once he talks to Piggy, he's like, what'll I do if I become like them? Right? That they don't know what's right and clear anymore. They don't know what the most important thing is. And near the end, like no one's keeping the fire going, right? He's simply running from them and it's antagonism all over again. So we also have, so weirdly enough, I think there's also sort of a hint at Ralph as a Christ figure. It's small and it's at the very end.
So the rib thing?
It's the rib thing when they throw a spear in his ribs.
Yeah.
Right? It
Well, we have-
grazes, doesn't break any bones, but
Well, if we have like that's Beelzebub, right? Lord of the Flies. So like then there's a Christ figure in opposition. Like
yeah. I'm not sure how much further it goes because he doesn't actually die.
Yeah.
But there
He's
is
about to be. Yeah.
There's just a hint at that for sure. The other cool duality I saw is that it's hinted that that one of the reasons maybe they are fleeing Britain because they are British, young British kids. And they talk about it like, we're British, we do everything the right way, and we got to just, keep civility and do this, and everything sort of devolves, is that they were leaving because of nuclear war, and that there is nothing to go back to because everybody's dead, and no one knows we're here. And
But isn't that just like schoolboys? Isn't that just their own like little imaginations running away with them?
it could be, but that's not even the issue. The issue is that at the end, it seems like them setting the entire island on fire is a mirror of nuclear war.
But then the GI shows up, so obviously there is civilization still.
So yes, there is still civilization, and we know there is because the airman gets killed, right? So we know civilization is happening around them. We see the boat go past. Like there is stuff. Stuff is left. I just thought that it was an interesting, like, basically scorched earth that kind of mirrored
This is what,
nuclear war.
1962, something like that. Isn't this like a book that kind of is playing into that fears of like this is what could happen if we don't
54.
Oh, 54, right. So this is what, that sort of fear of nuclear annihilation, right?
Yeah.
This is what happens if we don't rein in our passions or whatever, or learn to get along. We could blow the whole thing up.
Yeah. The other thing that really interested me was, as I read this, and especially this morning, as you reminded me, was that you've talked about the movement of tribal civilization back into law-based civilization, right? That's what our 2 episodes ago, what yours was all about. And I was like, this is the reversion. How do you go away from normal society into something barbaric like this? And so
where it's all based around the temperament and the appeasement of Jack.
Yeah.
Or Ralph, but mainly Jack, the most aggressive person. And yes. Yeah, and that usually comes because you've had some kind of great dissolution of order. Or like they've crash landed and they're going to need to survive on an island.
But they begin with normal order, and people, they kind of help, but they don't really help. I mean, they're boys, right? They'll like work on shelters for a little while, and then they'll go play or swim or do whatever they want to. They're lucky they found an island with a lot of abundance. But it made me think about what exactly were the hallmarks that led our boys to barbarianism, to degradation, and it seemed to be a few things: the strong personality of Jack. The lack of justice for faults, like when that kid with the birthmark goes away, that's the first signal that there are no consequences here, right? Ralph doesn't do anything about it. They should have done some
kind of ceremony. They should have done some sort of in memoriam. They should have held it up as like there should have been a mea culpa for the group. Yeah,
and Ralph should have brought it and said, "We have done a wrong thing. Like we built the fire too big, and we need to take stock of the little ones and take care of them." But Jack didn't. Or sorry, not Jack. Ralph. Ralph should have sort of taken care of the young ones better, but he never goes through the steps of actually doing it. In fact, they never really take care of the young ones very well. So that is one piece. Jack's painted face allows him to sort of do things that he wouldn't do, right? He's not as culpable. And I think like when you're anonymous, you can do things a different way. And it sort of brings him into a completely different, I don't know, headspace. But you see this with playing boys all the time, right? One will be chief and then he'll be cruel and he'll start acting the part, except they can actually act the part here.
Puts on the costume
and does that. And then I think the overlooming fear of the beast is the other one, like an antagonist, something to coalesce the fear and then drive them towards wanting some sort of higher authority to protect them from something so scary. And because Jack's personality is so big, he can. So that's where I'm at. That's sort of where I
There's
have
also
arrived
an
with those.
insecurity of Jack, right? Like Jack is, even though he's the big bad leader of the group, he's not a, like a centered, calm person. Like he's somebody that wants the recognition from everybody else. There's an arrogance there, if I remember.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he wants the recognition. When he doesn't get it, he'll cry and run off. And he hates Ralph because Ralph has the recognition because he is in charge. And then once he finally gets it, he sort of pushes him around and says, "See, they do what I want."
Yeah.
Right? Like now they are doing what I want.
So there's that insecurity of Jack that Jack wants the power and is willing to, yeah. And there's an insecurity there when he doesn't have it, so he's gonna connive to get it. So he wants the power for the sake of appeasing his own sort of like psychic shortcomings, whereas Ralph is like, okay, I'm in charge because I've had some of the clever ideas, and we're going to try to make a go of this. And he's not doing it. Ralph isn't in charge because he like wants to be the big man on campus, but because he gets voted in because everyone's like, yeah, he's pretty smart. He looks like
He's
a
holding the
leader.
shell.
He has
He's holding the shell.
Right. Yeah.
He's and he's got Piggy. He's got his like Merlin next to him to give him some good advice. He's got his consigliere.
And weirdly enough, Piggy is something that Jack doesn't like. He doesn't like that someone else is so close to the seat of power and it's not him, and that Piggy is a little bit goofy and doesn't really help and has asthma
but is clever and has good ideas.
Right.
And that's right. Nerds of the world. That's us.
They run
Us
the
clever-
world.
poor Piggy. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like, how long does it take before the shine and veneer of institutions and civilization, goes away, right? Like, as soon as I think that you're smart to say, as soon as they realize like that little boy with the birthmark has gone missing and nothing's going to come of it, there's going to be no consequences for it. Like, if you don't stem that tide, like, it's not, it's gone, it's done. Like if you allow that one atrocity, if you allow one bad thing of life and death to go unanswered, like you don't have civilization.
Well,
You won't have culture.
In the terms of Rousseau, you've broken the social contract,
Yeah.
right? The social contract is I give away my rights to an authority in order to receive those rights back with assurance,
Yeah.
right? Like you are in charge so long as you can protect me. But the kid goes missing and nothing is done. And at that point,
Yeah.
like the social contract is broken, the authority, the government has gone wrong.
Yeah.
There's no one to protect the boys.
As you're reading this, I'm listening to this like 35-hour long podcast on the history of Jim Jones and his People's Temple, and I'm at the point now where they're all in Guyana, and Jim Jones is basically being like this tribal god on the throne, just like talking into his microphone.
Wait, so tell me more about Jim Jones. Is he the Kool-Aid?
Kool-Aid. It wasn't Kool-Aid. It was the cheaper version. What was it? Flavor Aid.
Oh, great.
Grape.
He wouldn't even
Flavor Aid.
shell out for
Yeah.
the good one?
But they're in Guyana, and like the jungle makes you crazy, and they have no food, and there's 900 people in a facility that can only hold 120.
Wow.
And
Wow.
they're running out of food, and they're convinced that the CIA is coming for them, and a congressman comes to check on them, and they murder the congressman.
Oh my gosh.
And then Jim Jones is like, "It's happening. They're going to come for us," and so he commands everybody to commit suicide. But
I forget, did he also or no?
he shoots himself. Yeah, he kills himself.
Brutal.
Anyway, but there's the idea of like just how fast something can go from they were a weird group to begin with, but I'm not necessarily thinking about Jim Jones, but just thinking about like how fast something can go from order to like absolute toxic dysfunction when certain norms and certain lines get crossed.
Yeah.
And so like the kid going off and that not being stemmed, that not being made right, and then also the like ritualistic murder of Simon.
Right.
And everyone is cool with
And
it.
everyone's kind of they're not
cool with it, but they're not talking
But
about
at the
it.
end, they're just like, "Whoa, that was messed up," and they're like, "Does anybody try to give any half-hearted explanation as to what happened?"
Nope.
It's just they're all hopped up on pigs and dancing.
Pigs and dancing and fear, and it's nighttime,
Mm-hmm.
and they just, it's like the weird thing is when things go wrong, they're almost kind of playing a game.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
kill the
yeah.
beast, but then they actually do, and it's bad.
Yeah, and then you kind of like wake up the next morning, and it's like if we're not going to address the issue, if we're just gonna like toss it, put it under the rug, like you can't let that hang because it's just going to fester.
And they do the same with the beast, right? So the beast is there, and Jack's solution is, I'm just going to hunt, and maybe we can leave stuff for it and appease it, and it'll leave us alone.
Yes, if we don't think about it, it'll go away. And then when the airman shows up, or the naval officer or whatever, and then there is somebody that's like the symbol and representation of like actual institutional societies, the spell is broken and they all are just boys again and they start crying.
Well, even then, Ralph, he asks who's in charge here, and Ralph says, I am. Even though at this point, he is definitely not. And just behind him is Jack holding a spear. And Jack steps forward for a second and then rethinks it and steps back. And so doesn't take responsibility for the things that happened there.
But as the officer, he's asking that, does he call them out? Like
He says, oh, how's it been? And then he says, have you lost anyone? And he goes, 2. And he goes, killed? And the guy goes, yeah. I'm not even sure they mentioned the third one. I think he just says 2. Yeah. Okay, so I've always had a beef with the ending. I thought, a good dystopia ends bad as a warning to not do the same things. The only thing that has possibly redeemed this ending, because I feel like it should have just ended, right? They kill Ralph and they burn the island down.
No. All right, keep going.
So the thing that has redeemed it is that if Ralph is truly like a Christ figure representation, I'm not super convinced about that. But if he is, then the arrival of the airman is like the arrival of the Father, right? Like this is sort of new heavens, new earth.
Maybe.
We've torched the place. Everything has gone terrible, and now here the Father is to set everything aright. Like maybe it's a theistic kind of thing. I'm not totally sold on that. That would redeem the ending for me. But with most dystopias, I always wish that they would have ended poorly. But I'm not sure about this one. What are your stances on the ending?
My take on the ending is less that it's that and more that the author is saying, like, we need to love our ordered institutions that we have because the alternative is this. And if we, if we aren't careful about if we're not careful about keeping our conches undestroyed, right? Then we will slip into this just as easy as these boys do. So I think it's more of it's that sort of warning tale of maintain the customs and norms in society that we have, and any of those like norms that we cross, any of those lines that we cross, and just sort of say like, oh, that was crazy, let's never do that again, but never come to terms with it, is just a step towards barbarism. So, like, I'm trying to think of examples. Again, I've been reading this book on ancient Rome, and there was, certain lines that they were not supposed to cross in terms of decorum and rules. They weren't laws. There wasn't punishment. It was just, these are the things you don't do. And as the Republic sort of was falling apart, it just was like, more and more of those decorum lines were being crossed for the sake of stemming the present crisis. And it's like, well, we're going to kill this senator even though he's protected by custom, but he needs to go because he's dangerous. So we're just going to kill him. We all cool with it? All right, let's not talk about it again. We just killed that guy. Well, the next time they need to kill a senator, it's much easier to do. And so I think it's sort of that. It's like, if you're going to throw out decorum or throw out these sort of sacred things for the sake of appeasing the problem, or in this case, an imaginary problem, the beast that isn't even there.
Right.
Then you're going to have a burning island and people at each other's throats. I think that's more of the message is like keep your British rule of law, keep that sort of grand heritage alive, or we're all going to be barbarians.
Well, but the beast is there, right? You're saying there's not like a literal thing in the...
Oh, you're saying the beast is within.
I don't... Well...
I mean, that's the message.
Or you're saying
decay.
that the devil actually is there, and the devil is the pig actually talking to Simon?
I guess you have to interpret it that it's not actually happening, but like it's probably presented as Simon believes that he's actually hearing from... Who's Beelzebub in Paradise Lost? Is it like Satan's like...
Satan's buddy,
like right-hand man or whatever?
Lieutenant.
You say lieutenant?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but there is something evil. Well, I guess is the point. They want this enemy to be outside of them, but it's actually each other. Like it's actually whatever evil's inside of them. But there is an adversary on that island with them that nearly kills all of them, right? Does it feel like a cop-out at the end to have the adult show up and kind of save the day?
No, and now I'm wondering how much it's a mirror of the World Wars, right? Like, as Jack adopts the face paint, he finds himself able to do things he couldn't have done prior, right? It's painted Jack, not normal Jack.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's very similar to, the Nazi uniform, right? Put on the Nazi uniform and all of a sudden it's not me, I'm just part of a thing and I can do my duty even though it's terrible. So I'm wondering how much of this is a commentary on the World Wars and about the dangers that came from those things. And then if the arrival of the airmen would be, the arrival of civility that finally beat back the danger, but just by the hair of its.
Does it read as like, do you get like really invested in this back and forth between Ralph and the rest of the boys? Like, is it kind of like it's like a pause in the story to be like, hey, this is actually like a horrible thing that's happening. Like, this is not, does it read as entertaining? Does it read as like an engaging story that is then like, you have the adult come in at the end and is like, this
What
is
are you boys up to?
yeah, like cut this out.
Well, what do you mean? Like are you asking if the end feels like a weird break in the action?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, I think so.
It's
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's very stark.
Yeah.
It's very different. All of a sudden, like because it talks constantly about the decay that Ralph can't seem to stop. Right, his clothes are decaying, their hair is long, they can't stop that. They don't feel well half the time because they're eating fruit. Everything is, they started in this idyllic paradise, right? Almost Garden of Eden-ish,
Right.
and
They've destroyed it.
they've destroyed it.
Yeah.
And they sort of, eat from the tree and then it sort of decays and decays and decays. And Ralph is wondering why. And they keep on thinking like, maybe it's us. Maybe this island isn't a good place and it's us and we are the problem. And then as soon as you get the airman, well, his clothes aren't decayed. He is well put together. He's got the shiny hat. He is even observing manners once they sort of show up, right? He looks away embarrassed that they're all crying. He sort of trusts in decorum. He's very different than what they've been experiencing on the island. And so it does feel like a break.
I wonder if this book is also a response to your last episode, Graham, of what do we get when we move away from centralized civilizations and societies?
Yeah, maybe. I just imagine like, what did Jack and Ralph? What are they like 3 years later when they're in the same like college class? Like when they were coming off the island and they're back together into the civilized world. Like, what lessons do they take away from this? Like, how near man is always to like the brink of being at each other's throats if just a little bit of the institutions break down, right? Like, we always think that it would take a lot for violence and bloodshed to break out, but you get one little hurricane and there's looting.
Yeah.
I guess that's what,
Or the floods,
Yeah.
fires.
that has to be what the book is getting at, right? Like these boys are, how long are they on the island? Are we talking days, weeks?
It's long enough for their hair to grow long, so we're probably looking at few months, maybe 2-3 months, is my guess. The weird thing is that Piggy never seems to lose his weight, so I wouldn't say it's a whole lot of time.
Funny.
Right? Piggy's back remains shapeless even at the very end as he's cowering. So I don't think it's they're certainly not there for a year. It's month 2 tops.
Yeah. But just like you buy that, like
3-4.
that's how far away we are from total degradation and this tribal warfare that they're talking about.
I mean, it's hard to separate this from Nazism, right? So Nazism was create the fear of an other, right? Something on the outside, gather a tribe, and give them painted faces, and they can do horrible things.
Yeah.
Communists too.
What'd you say?
The communists do
also.
it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a pretty standard system for take power and then atrocity is a common enemy that strikes fear into the heart of people, and you promise to come and save them.
But the
and
thing is,
strong personality.
They stumble into it. It's not like
Right.
Jack
Wanted this, right?
planned it. They sort of
Well,
stumble into it.
But he wants power, doesn't he?
He doesn't
In
want
this?
power, but he wants power to appease his own shortcomings, and also he probably maybe he is scared of the beast.
Yeah.
So it's not a look at these idiots. I can get them to do whatever I want just by pretending the beast exists. He may actually believe in the beast.
Yeah.
And then he also has this moral shortcomings that he feels insecure about his own abilities. And so, what makes you feel better? Well, is everybody saying that you're strong and good, and so, you stumble into this thing.
I mean, don't you think that's true about some of the powerful world leaders too?
Totally.
That they actually do believe that there is this other thing, and they have to rally people underneath them.
Yeah, and I think that anybody that is using the adoration or using using the adoration or using the feedback that you get from people saying like, lead us, tell us what to do, and then you saying things and then them actually going and doing it and saying everything is better because you told me what to do, is like a seductive thing that is hard to anybody to put away or to anybody to come back from.
And then even for the followers, right, to be basically told that there are no consequences for doing atrocities like this. Like there was one kid in the tribe, Roger, who was the one levering rocks down on people, and he seemed to enjoy it, right? He was now allowed to do things he'd never been allowed to do before, which was hurt other people with impunity. And I think for some people that's attractive. So a strong personality that's willing to say, okay, I'm going to have you go do these horrible things, that will draw a certain set of people that are like, yes, I embrace this new freedom.
Yeah. And then you have people like Jack that are able to marshal those willing atrocity people who are just doing it because they just, for the lulls.
And then they strong arm people like Sam and Eric who really don't want to do those things, but now they're like, we kind of have to, or else we get tied up and beaten. So we have to do this stuff too.
Yep. It's not great.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, I just you bring in Sam and Eric and like this complicit was you have these people who are also following along to the strong leader's orders. I guess they fear for their life. Do they say that? Like
well, Sam and Eric get captured and tied up,
Right.
and so either they follow or they
the
like
next
Piggy
ones
was just killed. Right? You know what's their alternative? They have to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to side with the one guy who's running away from this huge tribe, or are they just going to stick with the powerful guy who now owns everything and can make fire and get meat?
This is bleak. What a bummer. This isn't
It's
a
not
book.
bleak. There at the it can just as easily change with a little bit of institutional.
You don't
fortitude.
believe this. This is what you think.
Right? As soon as the Brit shows up, he's like, "What you lot up to?" And he's like, and
You
they're like-
lot.
And they're like, "Sorry, sir," and they start bawling their eyes out. Like that's all you need, just another little somebody to say like, "This isn't how we behave," and then
Well,
everything fixes.
I think it's a little bit of civilization. It's also taking the responsibility back. Right? I think a lot of the fear that the boys had but never really discussed was that they would never be rescued. Right? They never really bring it up. They never talk about rescue except as comes the fire. And then even Ralph starts to forget it. But there's this like deep-seated fear that eventually gets localized with the beast. But I think that deep-seated fear is we are going to be here till we're old.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing. And all of a sudden that fear has now been, I don't know, resolved for them, and that they are going to be rescued. Everything is going to be okay. They can go home. They can feed ponies. They can do the normal British boy things. And now everything that did matter a second ago to ameliorate the fear that they had now doesn't matter because the fear is gone.
Yeah, haven't you ever been in those situations where like you let your imagination run wild with you and you think something terrible is going to happen and then like this is a dumb example. I remember being a little kid waiting for my parents to come home from something and they were late. And so you start thinking like they're not coming home. My parents are dead. They're in a car accident.
What am
My
I
whole
gonna
life is
do?
going to change. All of a sudden I'm going to like maybe no one finds me. And you just sort of get yourself all wrapped up into this sort of fear of like, how am I going to survive in a world? Because you're old enough to know there's consequences, blah, blah, blah.
But I've
And
only
then-
got 2 boxes of cereal, and then how do I buy cereal?
Yeah.
I can't even drive.
And you start working yourself up into a, and then the headlights pull in the driveway and mom and dad are there. You're like, oh, the world's back to normal. And that the spell is kind
I
of
wonder what's for
broken.
dinner. Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's sort of what has happened with the boys on the island is like, they're just given, they need to take responsibility for something they don't have the faculties for. And this is how they cope, and it turns into like bloodshed and chaos, and then like institutions and authority and demeanor or decorum and manners shows up, and then they immediately like are so thankful and so ashamed, and they burst into tears, and they're little kids again. The guy's like, "All right, boys, come on, let's go home." Yeah. I love it. I love that ending.
Yeah, it's growing on me for sure. I used to be super grumpy about it, but this time through I like it. Like it fits, it seems to fit better with the story and actually makes sense to me this time. Overall, it's great. If you're out there in listener land and you haven't yet read this book, I recommend it. Go for it. Just be on the lookout for some of those, deeper symbolisms and meanings that are there. I totally missed most of it the first time. So
It's a great book.
it's a great book.
Anything else?
And it's also, like maybe a 4-hour read.
I was going to say it's quick, isn't it?
It's quick. I mean, I had 60 pages last night, and then I read the rest of the 240 this morning. So
I guess I thought the copy you have in front of you, does that have like appendices or something like that?
it's got commentary at the
It
end.
does. Okay, because it looks the version you have looks longer than it quote unquote should be.
It ends right about there.
Oh, okay. That is
So,
most of it.
yeah, it's still pretty long, but the print is big.
There.
It's not too bad.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a worthwhile read. So I enjoyed it. Recommend it for sure.
Well, this has been Classical Stuff You Should Know with Graham, AJ, and Thomas. You can email us telling us which of the characters of Lord of the Flies you think we most represent.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Don't love that.
And no, you can email us at the guys at
I wear glasses. Like I'm literally piggy. Like literally. It's not great.
You can
Simon.
find us on Twitter just to like follow us and receive no tweets ever.
When is the last time we tweeted?
Yeah, when did we tweet last?
I tweet every now and then. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, people will be like, "I like this episode of Classical Stuff," and I'll tweet them back on the Classical Stuff thing, like,
Thanks.
I thought that episode sucked or something. Oh, cool. I'm just kidding. You can patronize us. We're on Patreon. We have in between episodes. We've got monthly AMAs. We've got other little things. We've got a chat that seems to be like sometimes work and sometimes not work. I've had my chat not work on my phone before.
I did for a little while. I think it was just going through some. It's back now.
it's back now.
And
So
I think also,
We're pretty active.
can't free members also get on there? I don't think that's exclusive to
anyone who signs up.
So
hit us
free
up.
members can also chat with us.
So
It's
I
a
did
pretty
not know
spot.
you can sign up for a free membership on Patreon.
There you
right?
go.
And then,
You can do
there
that.
you go. Yeah.
Where we all, for a long time, we were just all sharing pictures of our pets, which was kind of adorable.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Catch you on the flippy.
Bye.
Bye.